Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem. Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 135. It's the 16th of August. Dennis Gradov here with Kasper Ozolowski with a fun, juicy, would you say sexy episode of Submission Radio, Cass?
I'm like Homer Simpson when Bart asks him if he wants the rest of his fat from his steak. I believe you know the answer to that, and it is always a sexy show. We got some sexy guests on this week. Can't wait to announce it, man. Kenny Florian is making his first ever appearance on Submission Radio. He's got his own great podcast, Anik and Florian, and he's decided, hey, I'm going to jump over, I'm going to swim across the river to Australia and jump on another podcast. So I'm really excited to speak to Kenny about a whole bunch of things. He's a phenomenal analyst, and obviously I want to talk to him about his commentating, this McGregor fight, whole bunch of things. We got Stipe Miocic returning to the program after a very long time. I don't think he's been on the show since, I think our 100th episode or possibly even the very start of the year. It's been a long time, so I can't wait to get Stipe Miocic on the show. That's a sexy guest. And then we got Chris Weidman returning to the program. We told you last week he was supposed to be on the program. We've managed to reschedule him for this week, and the middleweight division is pretty crazy at the moment, so there's a lot to talk to him about. And then we got some more sexy guests, don't we, Dennis?
That's right. Friends from Flow Combat, Dwayne Finley and Hunter Homistak join us on Submission Radio. A lot to talk about this media day for McGregor and Mayweather. We're going to share our thoughts on that, on the build-up in general, talk a little bit about this new Mark Hunt main event for UFC Sydney, and also talk a little bit about what's going on with the boys, because they will be going back out on the road for another road trip, which is exciting. And Dwayne's got a new book coming out as well, so very excited to talk to him about all of that. And also a big thank you to Kasai Grappling for getting Kenny Florian on our program. You guys need to go on Twitter and follow him right now. It's at Kasai Grappling, the New York City's premier jiu-jitsu promotion, and there's a lot of fun stuff happening over there. So that's at Kasai Grappling. Again, a big thanks for them helping us get Kenny Florian onto the program. But Cass, we also want to thank someone else and announce a competition winner before we get into the program.
Yeah, that's right. We had a bit of a competition on the show last week, and that was obviously thanks to Musashi, who do a tremendous job, or they did a tremendous job of getting us to UFC 214, and obviously they have a tremendous line of products and supplements in terms of powders and proteins and creatines and all sorts of excellent products. We had a giveaway, an ultimate pack courtesy of Musashi, and the winner is, believe it or not, a man by the name of Aydin. So congratulations, Aydin, you've won the ultimate pack. And yeah, once again, a massive, massive thank you to Musashi for providing that pack and sending us over to UFC 214.
That's right. Great company, great products. I know a lot of people overseas looking for them, having trouble finding them. But if you're here in Australia, you could easily just walk down to your local supermarket and get a pre-mixed one if you don't know much about proteins and powders, or you could go to your pharmacies. They're just available all over Australia, and they're very, very high quality, great people. And supporters of MMA also support other fighters such as Tyson Pedro. So great to be a part of that. But guys, with that, if you haven't followed us on Twitter, at SubmissionAUS is the place to go. And if you want to be a part of these competitions, watch funny videos, check out all of our latest updated work and what's coming up. Make sure to like us on Facebook as well. Just a quick announcement that next week we'll be doing a preview show for this McGregor-Mayweather fight. So I know you guys enjoy some of these preview shows that we do. We get an interesting mix of journalists and people who sort of pertaining to what's happening at the moment. So very excited to do this preview show for what looks like to be one of the biggest fights of all time. But as we get that out of the way, we have our first guest on the line. And Kasper, to kick off the sexy show, I believe you're about to introduce him.
Alright guys, our next guest is a man of many hats. He is of course a multiple-time UFC title challenger, the first man to compete in 4 separate UFC weight classes. He is now the host and analyst of UFC Tonight on Fox, a UFC commentator, co-host of the Anik and Florian podcast, a third-degree BJJ black belt who still competes, by the way. He also does one of the best Al Pacino impressions we have ever seen in our lives. He is, of course, the one and only Kenny Florian. I know you like that, Kenny. Kenny, welcome to the program. How are you today?
Too funny. My greatest accomplishment is the Pacino impersonation, by the way. Thank you.
Well, Kenny, you've got a lot of accomplishments and gigs and things to your name. Did we miss anything in the intro?
No, I think you got everything. All the important stuff. You got the Pacino thing. That's the most important.
That was the first thing, and then we were like, all right, let's do some research. What else has Kenny done in his life? But in all seriousness, though, with all the things you've got going on, do you find that you're actually busier now than when you were an active fighter?
I am for sure, actually. It's not as grueling on my body, but I definitely am busier than ever. And also, I guess the other thing I would add too, I own a school in Boston that I run with my brother, but I just opened up a school here in Los Angeles. We are going to be open next week. We have like a little soft opening on Saturday in Los Angeles. It's called Meraki Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a jiu-jitsu school that I'm opening up with my business partner, Jason Hunt, and very proud of it and can't wait to get that open. So, yeah, between getting that gym up and running and all the TV duties and the podcast and everything else, I've been definitely keeping more busy than when I was fighting.
Talk to us a little bit about this new school, because obviously everybody knows the school that you and your brother have. What's sort of going to set this other school apart? What's going to be the focus of this one for everybody listening, for our listeners out there in the US?
For sure. When I look back on how I've changed as an individual, I have to thank Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for humbling me and for getting me to constantly push myself and get uncomfortable with with a variety of things and testing myself. And I think that's when we really grow as human beings. And I think that's when we become humble and become stronger and become wiser. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the reason for that. If I didn't have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in my life, I don't know where I would be. So I'm extremely thankful for that. And I think that is the real reason of why I changed my life and where I am today. And I feel like that is a way for a lot of people to improve their lives. And I think I'm at the point where I'm just very grateful for that. And I want to share that with as many people as possible. So, we came up with this idea of Meraki. Meraki is a Greek word for putting your love, passion, and soul into your work. And that's something I've always tried to do the best of my ability. And that's what we're going to try to recreate with this new Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. And that's kind of how much we've been putting into this jiu-jitsu school, with just getting every single detail and putting our heart and soul into it and making it as beautiful as possible and making a real inspiring space and making it a comfortable space for people to go and learn and test themselves and maybe reveal something about themselves that they didn't know that they had, and hopefully reveal how strong they actually are.
And obviously, when you're opening up a school, there's so many different things and facets involved. I'm wondering if there's anything particular that stands out, any I guess tough decisions that you've had to make when I guess choosing how to not only decorate but what kind of equipment to put in and things like that. And also, I'm wondering, Kenny, with your super busy schedule, will you be personally teaching the classes at Meraki?
Yeah, I will definitely be teaching at Meraki. I will. I'll be there as much as possible. If I'm not filming, I will be at the school. So I'm very excited about that. And I think probably the most difficult thing, to be honest, was just making deadlines as far as construction and all that stuff. And Jason really was, my business partner, was great about making sure he was on top of that. But, you can only control so much. Things are going to go wrong and we're going to have to change some things. I think we signed the lease in like April, and here we are in August.
Wow.
Finally getting things ready. So we had a little bit of a roller coaster ride trying to meet deadlines and trying to get contractors that aren't trying to screw us over and all that stuff. So we're finally in the home stretch, and we're grateful to be here at this point.
Yeah, it's exciting times. We want to circle back around to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because there's a lot of other things going on at the moment. But I just wanted to ask you, Kenny, because you're a super busy guy. There's a lot of stuff going on. And you also pump out, episodes of the Anik and Florian podcast every week, which is, a really good podcast and has been a really high-level podcast for a really, really long time now. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you guys get into doing the podcast? And I suppose me and Casper, we've been doing this podcast for a few years now. We notice it's a huge grind on ourselves, pushing out episode after episode. Yeah. So with your busy schedule, how have you guys been able to keep it going for so long?
I think it's just kind of, I think we have a nerd-like passion for the sport. So we kind of, the way we came up with the idea is, after we'd be calling fight for like 6 hours, we'd go back and get something to eat and get something to drink and just kind of continue talking about these fights. And we kind of like have our own little wrap-up shows and talk about what's next and all that stuff. And Anik was always like, man, like we're talking about these fights anyway. We should do a podcast right after the fights, do like a wrap-up show or whatever. And that wasn't so practical because of our traveling schedule and what we needed as far as equipment and whether we'd have good Wi-Fi or not and all that stuff. So ultimately, he was able to convince me to do the podcast on a Monday. We don't always pump them out on a Monday, but we do our best to. And getting them up every week is difficult. John is very busy. I'm very busy. But, we just love talking about the sport, to be honest, and try to give people just a little bit different perspective. And I think we also feel that I guess there's like a gratifying process to it, because when we're on television, sometimes we don't have a whole lot of time to break down a fight. Like the big challenge in television is like you maybe have 15 to 30 seconds to break down a fight, you and your co-host or whatever it is. And pretty soon they're in your ear going, wrap. Okay, let's go to the next segment. And, how do you really break down a fight in 15 to 30 seconds? For me, I like talking about it. So I really like getting down in the nitty gritty. So with the podcast, I think it allows us to really get more in depth and kind of break down fights in a better manner. And so I think it's really gratifying in that regard.
And it is a great podcast. I like that you guys are very sort of real and raw about it, provide a lot of insight. And I also love seeing fighters and former fighters sort of get into the media aspect, because I love sort of seeing the reactions and different perspectives, because obviously you would have done heaps and heaps of interviews throughout your fighting career, and we know that media, it's not always a fighter's favorite part, but now that you're sort of on the other side of the mic with Fox and the podcast itself, does it sort of change the way you view interviews, and do you sort of have a different appreciation for, I guess, what's involved in conducting an interview?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I also appreciate it that much more. I mean, you guys obviously are doing an awesome job, and I could tell because you guys make it very natural. And I think that's one of the most difficult things for television or the podcast is making it just a normal conversation of 2 or 3 guys or 4 guys at the bar just having a conversation. I think it's more inviting for fans, and even a lot of the fighters, they don't like answering questions, and it's hard to get them to open up. So if you're able to get a fighter to open up and be more real and show a side of themselves that maybe they're not so willing to show, I think that makes you a good interviewer. So I think there's a lot of things that I didn't quite appreciate and still kind of come to appreciate at this point in my career. So it's definitely an interesting twist to the situation, being on the other side of things.
Well, I mean, you've interviewed so many people, so many great personalities in the MMA world over such a long time. Do you have a person or an interview or a moment that stands out to you through your interviewing career that you kind of, I suppose, is up there on the list of the people you've interviewed in the past?
I guess one of the coolest experiences that, whenever it's said and done and whatever happens with McGregor and Mayweather, I get to say I called Conor McGregor's first fight, and I got to interview him first in the UFC. And we all remember him saying, 60 G's, baby, yelling at Dana. And I got to be there for that. So that was pretty cool. I could always say I called Conor McGregor's first fight, and I did his first interview in the UFC. So that was pretty special.
Well, I mean, you mentioned McGregor, so what a perfect segue. I wanted to ask you, though, what do you think of Dan Hardy getting the call up to do the commentary for the Sky Sports broadcast of Mayweather-McGregor? And do you sort of, does it, I guess, warm you seeing that? Do you sort of see it as a bit of a win for the home team, seeing, old Dan get the call?
It really is, man. It's so cool. And I think Dan is a very intelligent guy who has been a student of the game. He really is a true martial artist. He's been doing, martial arts his whole life. And I think the fact that they reached out to someone like Dan Hardy, I think shows how far commentary has come, and especially to have him representing, the guys over in the UK, and to have that mixed martial arts perspective. It's pretty amazing, man. And even just the fact that this fight is getting put together between a top UFC fighter and a top boxer still boggles my mind every single day of how far we've come. It's really cool. I'm really happy for Dan, and definitely I see it as a big step forward for the sport.
Now, we know you've gone back and forth on your prediction for the fight, and initially it seemed like you thought McGregor could do it, but maybe not so much now. We're about just over a week away from this thing happening. So tell us, where have you landed on this one? What's the official prediction from Ken Flair right now?
Let's see. All right. Well, I have been going a little bit back and forth. Maybe not back and forth as far as my predictions, but my perceptions of the fight. And it is always confusing, especially hearing a very confident Conor McGregor and kind of, again, realizing that this is a Floyd Mayweather that hasn't fought in a couple years. And again, I keep hearing that maybe he's not training as hard as he used to, and that he's, maybe fighting for the money. Which I'm sure he is. It is a lot of money on the line. And I know that Conor's going out there not to participate. He's not going there to just collect the check. And I think a lot of fighters would when they look at Floyd Mayweather in a sport that they're not involved in. So I think Conor is genuinely going out there to look for a knockout. Can he do it? I just don't know. I don't think so. I don't think there's a guy on the planet, if you are only throwing hands, I don't think there's a guy on the planet who's going to be within 20 pounds, who's going to be able to really outbox someone like Floyd Mayweather. Now, the way that you have to approach someone like Floyd is to make it a fight. You cannot box him. I mean, Canelo Alvarez is a phenomenal boxer, extremely technical. He hits hard. He does everything right. He didn't get close to beating Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather just, looked like he was in a class all by himself. And that was because he took this approach of trying to outbox one of the best boxers, perhaps the best boxer of our generation, a defensive master. And I think you can't box Mayweather. You need to fight Mayweather. You need to make it nasty. You need to make it dirty. And he needs to get it done early. I've said it before. I give Conor about a 10% chance. I would love for Conor to knock out Floyd Mayweather. I think that it would be yet another milestone for our sport. I think it puts us on the map that much more. I think it gives us that much more respect. But it is an extremely, extremely tall task for a Conor McGregor who has never competed in pro boxing to go against one of the best boxers of all time and beat him. Can he knock him out? Yes, absolutely. It is combat. Anything can happen. But I still think Floyd is going to win that fight. And again, I would love for Conor to win, obviously given my background, and I would love to see it happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. However, when I look at other upsets in sports history, a lot of people said Buster Douglas would never beat Mike Tyson ever. A lot of people back in the 1970s said the United States would never beat the Russians in hockey. And, there have been some amazing upsets in sports history. This could be another one of them. But when I look at the stats, when I look at the approaches, when I look at the way that Mayweather fights compared to the way Conor fights, Floyd should win every single time. But this is a Conor that is extremely motivated, and I think he knows that he can't take that traditional boxing approach. I think we're going to see a very unusual approach from Conor. Everything from switching stances to jumping around and finding crazy angles to him getting on the inside and getting pretty dirty when it comes to fighting Floyd.
And we've seen him say that it's kind of likely that maybe he comes back to the UFC and has another fight possibly in December. But let's be honest, Kenny, if he beats Floyd Mayweather, do you expect McGregor to go back to MMA, or do you expect him to have another high-profile fight in boxing, maybe even a rematch with Floyd Mayweather if he is able to get this upset?
So your question was, do I think that Mayweather, will he come back to MMA if he loses or if he wins?
Well, if he loses, okay. I think we think he will be back in MMA. But if he wins, right. I mean, do you see his future sticking around in boxing? Because we all know the huge money that he can make, the big matchups that they could put together. Do you see him coming back to MMA if he does get this upset?
I think I don't know. If I'm Conor McGregor and I get the winner of Floyd Mayweather, I say goodbye to everything. I never step in a ring or a cage ever again. I blow my kisses and I say, thank you. I'm the greatest of all time. You guys take it easy. I have $100 million in my bank. I'm going to go buy an island. But, I think if he loses, I think we'll definitely see him back. If he wins, does he come back to the UFC? I don't know. I don't see. I mean, what else? What's bigger than that? What is bigger than that? He's won 2 belts in the UFC, and then just knocked out or beat the best boxer of all time. I don't think he would come back. I think it would harm his legacy. I think he'd be a fool to come back. He already has all the money in the world, and he just climbed Mount Everest without any experience. So I think he should retire if he wins. But If he loses, I do think he will come back. I think he probably wants to have another fight, maybe against Nate Diaz or maybe a super fight against someone like George St. Pierre for big money. And if he fights, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at him and say, okay, listen, maybe he didn't beat Floyd Mayweather, but let's see what he can do in the octagon. That's his realm. That's where he's at his best. He went out there, maybe he put on a good fight against Floyd, and maybe he goes to the decision, but he loses the decision. I think a lot of people will be interested to see this Conor McGregor now fight in mixed martial arts, and I think he would probably break maybe the $2 million buy or the $2 million pay-per-view buy purchase for his next fight in the UFC. I think he's going to bring in a lot of fans over from boxing, just based on all the things he's been saying and all the hype up leading up to this fight. On fight week alone, I think he would bring in a lot of mixed martial arts fans, and that's what makes him so special.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be it's going to be a crazy night on August 26th. We can't wait to watch. We appreciate the time you've given us, Kenny, and obviously we want to go back to you because there's quite a few things that we still want to cover with you. I wanted to ask you this. Dominic Cruz and Daniel Cormier obviously share the responsibilities for the pay-per-view broadcast alongside Joe Rogan and Anik. You've obviously been doing the job for a while now as commentator, doing a great job, by the way. Was there ever discussion to bring you on as a third man, and would you ever want to commentate the pay-per-views as well?
Yeah, of course, I would love to. I was doing it for a while. They haven't used me in a long time. I don't know why, but I enjoy doing that. That's always been a real fun part of the work. And if they ever wanted to use me as a third person in the booth, I would be more than happy to do that. It'd be an absolute honor to call the fights with Anik and Rogan or whoever the other third person is.
I mean, there's been a little bit of controversy around the commentating in the UFC. Todd Grisham is someone who, people know very well from his WWE run. He did some great work with ESPN, and he's recently been criticized by the way he commentated the fight. Some people feel like that he doesn't really give the sport and its athletes enough respect. I'm just wondering, Kenny, as a former fighter and obviously a current commentator, what are your thoughts on some of the criticisms that he sort of dealt with his, new run in the UFC?
Yeah, it's tough. It is a very tough thing. Especially you do your research and all that stuff. It would be really awkward if I was calling a basketball match, a basketball game, and I said, there's LeBron James, as opposed to LeBron James. It would sound really weird, especially to the hardcore fan. And, messing up Kazushi Sakuraba's name, or maybe making some, how good of a job he does. He wants to make sure that he keeps the fans happy, and he's always trying to do his best. And I think it's just kind of, especially the hardcore fans, right? So I'm sure he'll continue to work hard. And
there's of course, another man who, in the commentary booth, and that's of course Snoop Dogg. Recently, you stand on that, and sort of him being brought in to discuss something that he's not really familiar with. Kind of seems like he's being brought in to, I guess, appeal to certain fans. But what do you think about, I guess, a celebrity being in there and talking about the fights?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that one a little bit. A different twist to the sport. I appreciate that. Again, something that rubs me the wrong way about someone who really criticizes the fighters, where, we don't need more people that are out there just spreading negativity, disrespectful. And I think if you've trained an ounce, if you've trained like in one kind of sparring match against a professional mixed martial arts fighter, and then let him call the fights, I think that would be a little bit different. I'd like to see how he would call the fights after that. And I'm not saying that in a way that's trying to disrespect Snoop Dogg, but at the same time, like, am I going Dogg's rhymes aren't so high level, or questioning whether he's a gangster or not? You know what I mean? Like, I know nothing about that life. Like, who am I to judge that guy on his hip hop skills, or how his freestyle is, or it just, I don't know. If I know nothing about that, what am I doing talking about it? I'm not a fan of anyone who does that.
News coming out of New York. I mean, we've been hearing a lot of great stuff about this new Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu promotion called Kasai. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. Please correct me, but I got it. Yes. See, how about that? Todd Grisham, eat your heart out. No, I'm kidding. Let's talk about the promotion. Very exciting stuff. We're hearing great things about it. Talk to us about this thing, because people are really excited about it.
I'm very excited about it as well, man. And they brought me on as an ambassador, and hopefully I get an opportunity to commentate for the professional events that they have planned. And myself and Eric Owings and Holys Gracie and Richard Byrne and Ken Gelman we're a part of this organization named Kasai Elite Grappling Championships, and our goal really is to provide entertaining matches that the jiu-jitsu fans want to see. And I think that a lot of the matches that we're hoping to see in jiu-jitsu don't end up as exciting as we hope. And I think there's a lot of jiu-jitsu matches that people want to see out there. And I think also there is a need and there is a market for more professional grappling events, and getting the best grapplers from all over the world, getting the best jiu-jitsu guys to face each other and to make entertaining matches for the fans is something that I think a lot of people want to see in the jiu-jitsu community. And I think it's also a way to raise the level and give these competitors an opportunity to make money and entertain. And I think that's really where we're coming from, is creating that for the fans and for the competitors as well. Just making it as entertaining and as fun as possible. And, Ken Gelman's a guy who has a lot of experience, from the WWE to Strikeforce, and Richard Byrne, who is, kind of started it and the money guy behind it. And obviously Holys Gracie with his vast experience in jiu-jitsu and knowing the Brazilian jiu-jitsu community so well. I think we have the opportunity to really bring in a lot of exciting events in the future.
And just to clarify, what exactly will your role be, Ken? Are you commentating? Are you competing? Is it something else? Are you sort of as an ambassador? How will you be involved exactly?
I will be involved primarily as an ambassador and as a commentator for the event. So, that's something that I'm really looking forward to and excited to be a part of.
And just curious, as we let you go, Kenny, I'm just curious, you obviously being originally a Boston guy, I know you're in the West Coast now, but what do you think this would do sort of for the BJJ scene in New York and the East Coast in general, having Kasai around?
I think it's huge. On the West Coast, there's a lot of opportunities for people to compete. There's a lot of different events. But I think for the East Coast, especially with the guys at Renzo's and Marcelo Garcia and the guys in Jersey that are affiliated with Renzo Gracie, I mean, there are just so many amazing competitors that are showing that, listen, the East Coast is on the scene right now, especially in regards to submission wrestling and no-gi competition. Gary Tonin and Gordon Ryan and all the guys from Renzo's, I think, are really showing that they're competing at an extremely high level. Eddie Cummings is another one. So these guys are winning some big-time competitions, and with Abu Dhabi coming around the corner, I think they will prove yet again that they are a force to be reckoned with. So I think it just gives them more of an opportunity to shine, and it gives the East Coast competitors more opportunities to compete against high-level people. And it doesn't mean we won't have West Coast guys involved. They will certainly be involved. But with all the operations out on the East Coast, I think it will definitely give an opportunity for the East Coast grapplers to raise their level, to raise their profile, and to compete in some awesome events.
All right, well, we're super excited. The first amateur tournament is scheduled for October 21st in Midtown Manhattan. Make sure to check it out. And of course, if you are in the LA area, make sure to head down to Kenny's brand new gym opening at Meraki. There is a free event in Los Angeles on Santa Monica Boulevard this Saturday. And also be sure to follow Kenny on Twitter at Kenny Florian. The man does great work, great analysis. And of course, you can see him on all the Fox broadcasts in UFC Tonight. Kenny, it has been an absolute pleasure. We could have chatted with you all day and picked your brain, but we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for jumping on with us.
You guys rock anytime. Thank you.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest is MMA's biggest paradox. On one hand, he's one of the nicest and most humble guys in the sport. He's also a firefighter and paramedic by day. On the other hand, he is the UFC's heavyweight champion and officially the baddest man on the planet. We are very lucky to have him back on the program again. He is Cleveland's own Stipe Miocic. Stipe, welcome back to the program. How are you today?
Hey, guys, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's our pleasure, and it's been a while, Stipe, and there's a lot to talk about. So to kick things off, talk to us about this photo that we saw from Memorial Day. It's you in your fire department formal uniform with two ponies. Now, the pony on the left seemed like it didn't really like you. Why didn't that pony like you? Why did it look like There was something going on the left with that left pony there in that photo.
Because I was petting him probably too much, and he's probably over me at that point. I wouldn't leave him alone.
Yeah, I feel like the one on the right, he was all about it. He was loving it. He was like, "Oh my God, it's UFC heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. This is the greatest day of my life." The one on the left was like, I'm a superstar. I don't care. I feel like you would have looked over to the firefighters and been like, "All right, guys, we've got a troublemaker. Have him removed."
Yeah, totally. No, they were great. I was so enthralled by them. I just couldn't stop petting them. They were so awesome.
Well, in all seriousness, how is the firefighting going and the paramedic work going? Are you still working the same amount of shifts as when we last spoke?
Oh yeah, nothing's changed, man. Love what I do, man. I love helping people out when they need it.
I know. Yeah, every time we've spoken to you, you spoke about how much you love it. At this point, though, with you being obviously a big star, UFC champion, do you get guys in the building, other firefighters, kind of looking at you like, "Why are you still working here, man? You're a superstar." No,
not at all, man. They're great guys. It's like a brotherhood. They treat me with all respect. They treat me like equal. Nothing different when I come in the station.
What's going on at the moment over there? We know you guys like to play a few pranks on each other. Can you share any pranks, any latest pranks that have been going on in the firehouse?
I'm really haven't think of any. I mean, there's always something going on. Lately, we got a new chief at the one station, so every time he gets in his vehicle to go home, they like turn the music on full blast, and so it scares the crap out of him every time. It's pretty funny, actually.
Poor Chief. He just wants to go home, and he has to deal with Stipe's shenanigans. But let's be honest,
Totally.
New Chief, you got to show him who's really boss. You got to show him who the real heavyweight chief is around there. I'm just wondering though. We love checking in on all your stories and adventures from being a firefighter and paramedic. Any crazy stories recently? Any crazy call ups? Any wildfires or anything you can tell us about?
No, nothing. Just the usual. Usually people are sick or something. Nothing. No crazy house fires. They had one or two, but they shut them down before they even spread. So that was good, but nothing too out of the ordinary.
You're a huge star now. You were a star when we spoke, but now you're a massive star. Are you getting to the point now when you get to someone's house, they're not letting you leave without taking a million selfies and trying to make you a cup of tea or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know about a star, but thanks for making me feel good. No, it's getting when I get in calls, people start recognizing me more, and a lot of times I have to wait till we get to the hospital, take a picture if I have to. I try not to. It's kind of embarrassing a little bit because I get made fun of after, but nothing too bad.
Well, the other thing is, obviously, you've got a lot of changes in your life. You haven't spoken in a while. Now you're officially married, and you've also built and moved into a new house. And we sort of joked last time about the man cave area, but set the record straight for us, Stipe. What's in there, and what did you and your wife, Ryan, settle on in terms of sporting posters all over the walls? What's the decoration setup like?
Well, in the basement, I gotta put more up, but I haven't had a chance. I got all my fight posters, half of them. I get the other half. I have to get the other half framed. Then I'll have a bunch of jerseys too that I'll get framed. And then we have a huge barn with our house. And we randomly, right before we moved, we got this massive banner of me. It's funny. I have no idea where we got it from. It was at my house. So I was like, oh. So now it just sits in the barn and it hangs up. It's pretty sweet.
Ah, awesome. That's inspiration for all the animals that you're probably going to get in there. I'm just curious. You mentioned some of those jerseys that you're planning on putting up on your walls. What's the most prized poster in the collection, and what poster are you sort of chasing right now?
I don't know. I like all of them, man.
Are you a Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali kind of guy, or are you like one of these guys likes to get the Scarface one up there with the bullets? Is there a taste to these posters?
No, it's just pretty much like a lot of it's like newspaper articles that people frame for me and stuff like that. It's just from fights and stuff, but mostly like that. Nothing like that. I just mostly, memorabilia stuff. My buddy made me a little indentation in my wall. It's like a little mantle, like a bunch of shelving with my belt on them and stuff.
Very nice. And is this the kind of situation and space where you invite all your friends and your buddies over to watch the fights? And do you ever have a situation where you're watching fights, you're just trying to relax, and your friends are looking at you going, "Oh, Stipe, we know you could kick that guy's ass"? Oh, no, we just watch the fights and enjoy them, man. We don't sit there and talk about who I could beat. I could beat anyone, so I'm not worried about it. Yeah.
Well, of course, you're the undisputed champion. But at any point, have you told your wife, Ryan, that if this fighting thing doesn't work out, maybe you're expecting her to lace up the gloves and go win a title herself to keep the money coming in?
Oh, totally. She's an animal. She fought. She'd be a good fighter. I'm telling you. She's got good reactions. She's great speed. She's a champ. She scares me sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I bet. And speaking of scary, someone who's an animal, you yourself, I mean, there's nothing lined up at the moment, no fights on the horizon. You had a great performance at UFC 211 back in May. What's the situation with you, and how soon can we expect you back in the octagon?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what they have for me. Nothing's come up, so we're going to sit there and see what the UFC wants to do. So I'm just going to enjoy the summer and, keep training, getting better.
I mean, you're now the man when it comes to being in the heavyweight division. You've defended the title twice. You've gone 4 first-round stoppages in a row. You're on the verge of breaking the record and making the UFC heavyweight history. But do you feel like people are giving you the full credit that you kind of deserve? Because, I mean, you are the baddest man on the planet, but are you feeling that? Are you feeling you're getting that credit?
Honestly, I don't care. I mean, I'm just happy. I'm winning. I'm healthy. Can have a good life for me, my wife, and our family, and that's all I care about. I don't worry about what everyone thinks or the credit I get. I'm just gonna go out there and keep doing what I do. I like winning, and I like being called champ.
Yeah, of course. And while you are winning, obviously we saw that you were, a bit unhappy about being paid less than Overeem for that win, and then unhappy again about being paid less than Junior Dos Santos, both guys that you knocked out in the first round. Just curious, where are you at in terms of your relationship with the UFC now in that situation?
Oh, that's on there. That's the ball's in their court. So we'll see. You'll find out when I find out.
I guess when we're looking at this situation from fans or an analyst or a podcast perspective, probably the most annoying thing that we suppose you dealt with is that you expressed was that probably one of the more disappointing things about the situation? And did the UFC promise you that you'd be the higher paid fighter when you were there with Junior, when you're fighting Junior?
Well, listen,
This is something that's on the back of your mind as we're doing the interview?
No. Actually, I'm looking at it. It looks really good. I did
a champion when it comes to even things like grass cutting. I was listening to you on the MMA Hour, and you were speaking.
So we'll see what they say.
What's the update? Is it looking promising? Is there any movement on getting a better deal?
No, I mean, just about the same. It's pretty stagnant. I think it's because the whole McGregor-Mayweather fight, so not really much has gone on.
I mean, it's not in your nature, but do you feel like that's what the UFC kind of want from you in order to sell these fights a bit more? Do you feel?
I mean, it's whatever they want. I mean, that's what they want. I'm not going to do it. It's not the person I am. I'm going to go out there and show up and fight and put on a good fight for the fans. That's what they want to see. I'm not going to sit there and, not put on a good fight. I train my ass off to become the champ, and I'm not giving this belt up. I worked way too hard to give it up. So, I mean, I don't
have to go out here and yell at people for no reason.
No, man.
Yeah, we can put one together for you, Steve, but we're pretty good with that.
I got you, bro. I appreciate it. Thanks for the lookout.
Is obviously embedded. I feel like a lot of those embeddeds do even better than some of the other regular ones because we get to see you at your natural. We see all your pranks and stuff like that. I know we enjoy. Do you enjoy that sort of whole process? I know you're just being yourself, but do you enjoy having the cameras around and capturing you and all those funny moments?
Oh yeah, totally. That's how I am 24/7. I'm always looking to have a good time and have fun and joke around. That's what I think the reason my wife married me, because I make her laugh.
Because I feel like the best way for you to sort of, rather than even, sitting here and doing interviews with us or anyone else, I feel like the best way to sort of see the real Stipe is through some kind of embedded style reality show. Have you ever considered doing it long term?
That'd be fun. I would do it 100%. I would. That'd be fun.
I feel like a good name would be Stipe Knows Best. Maybe Drew Carey comes around to the house once every episode and you guys get into Cleveland adventures. I'm not sure, but I think a lot of things will come out. It's funny as well because we're sort of in a weird age right now where a lot of champions aren't a great champion. Demetrius Johnson's a great champion, but it looks like even John Jones, who's a champion, is going for this fight with Brock Lesnar. What do you think about sort of the money?
It's two combat sports. One boxing, one MMA. That's what people want to see.
For sure, and we were on that.
Well, that's what he wanted to do, I can't make his decisions for him. I mean, he can do what he wants. He's a great fighter. I mean, he has a reason why he wanted to do it.
I mean, a lot of the cards are in his favor. At the same time, I feel, man, I strike for a reason when I strike. He's kind of alluding to the fact that, you might have an advantage on him. So do you feel like a factor in the decision-making process was that he considers you a tougher matchup than Brock?
Yeah, maybe. I can't make decisions for him. It's that's how he felt. That's what he said. You know, that's what happened. I mean, like I said, like, you know, I make my decisions. You know, I don't listen to anyone else. He made his decision.
Yeah, and he also spoke about how one of the reasons why he's sort of opting for Brock Lesnar instead of you is obviously because Brock Lesnar historically has been a big pay-per-view draw. He's a big payday, and I guess the interesting thing is he spoke about how a fight with you, while it would be tough, he believes that the hardcore MMA fans would be interested, but not so much the casual fans, and he sort of alluded to the fact that it wouldn't really be a super fight. What did you think about that notion that a fight between you and John wouldn't be a super fight?
I mean, I think it would be, but you know, listen, at the end of the day, I don't really care. You know, whoever the UFC wants me to fight, I'm going to fight. I don't pick and choose what I fight. I mean, listen, of course, I you know, like a bigger payday, like just like anyone else, but I'm not going to sit there and, you know, worry about when someone said about me or doesn't want to fight me or doesn't say I'm irrelevant or not. I can give two shits about it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the thing here is a lot of fans would be very obviously excited to see that fight between you and John Jones. When you look at potential opponents in the heavyweight division, and, you know, right now there's not too many out there, does a fight with John Jones kind of excite you more than potentially some of the title contenders in the division right now?
I think any fight, you know, whatever fight excites me. You know, it's the profession I chose. You know, I love fighting. I love everything about it. So whoever they put in front of me, it's an exciting fight for me. It doesn't matter how high caliber a fighter is, or, you know, what, you know, just whatever it is, I'm enthralled for it because that's what I trained for.
Yeah, I get the feeling, Stipe, that you're a professional guy. You show up on the day, you fight whoever the UFC puts in front of you, and you don't really care who it is. You just, you know, kind of want to be champion. But at the same time, you're in this position where you're trying to get what you feel you deserve. You're trying to get paid, and Brock Lesnar, it would be a path towards that because historically, like I mentioned, you know, he's a pay-per-view draw, he's a big payday, and he would pay more than, say, just another heavyweight contender. In that sense, does he kind of, I guess, excite you as a possibility as opposed to some of the other guys?
No, I mean, honestly, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, I love what I do. You know, like I said, I'm going to keep repeating myself. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but, you know, I mean, no one really excites me. I just, you know, whoever they put in front of me, that's who I got, and that's what I'm excited about. That's who I want to fight. That's who I want to punch in the face.
I feel like on the poster it'll say the man with the biggest head versus the man with the biggest fists. Do you think that'll be a good slogan to sell that fight if this thing ever comes together?
Yeah, man, you guys should be millionaires. You guys come up with these great ideas. And producers, you guys got this.
I think the fact that we're still broke shows how great these ideas really are. You mentioned you're not you know, you don't get super excited, and I've never really seen you call anybody out other than when you were gunning for the title, but you did call out Anthony Joshua for a boxing match. Talk to us about that a little bit. You never really called anyone out. Why call out Anthony Joshua?
Well, I'm not really calling him out. I just say, hey, you know, why don't you put the best heavyweight in the world against, you know, boxing against MMA? That'd be great. I think it's a great fight. You know, like you said, the money fight. That too, but also I think it'd just be great. I boxed before. I know how to box. I do a lot of boxing, and I think it'd be an amazing challenge for me. And I think I do well. I know I do well.
Was it a situation when you saw McGregor making his move to do this fight with Mayweather, and you thought, look, there's an opportunity here, or did you have the motivation to sort of do this for a long time now, and it just kind of started coming out recently?
No, I really just thought about it. You know, we just didn't know how to come about it. You know, I just didn't know. You know, but, you know, now hopefully McGregor does well and, you know, gives us an opportunity.
You tweeted on August 4th and said, Anthony Joshua, looks like your schedule is wide open. No excuses. Let's dance. # baddest man on the planet. He didn't respond on Twitter, but have you heard anything from him in private or behind the scenes or management?
Yeah. No, nothing yet.
Are you disappointed that there's nothing? I mean, you're the UFC champion, and he doesn't seem to be giving you much love here.
Nah, it's all right. Listen, I'm used to it. Another day in the life of Stipe.
It's interesting because, you know, this would be a very fascinating matchup. And Anthony Joshua is someone he's probably one of the more popular heavyweight champions, you know, for a really long time. Fans really love him. You guys are both kind of like the people's champions in a lot of ways. People really are behind you guys. But have you spoken to Dana or the UFC about this matchup? If Anthony comes back tomorrow and says, okay, you know, what have I been doing? This is the great matchup. Has the UFC said that they're open to you actually making it happen if he agrees to it?
No, I haven't really talked to him. I think they've been more focused on the Mayweather-McGregor fight. So,
how dare they?
You actually, there was a headline a while back where basically it was you calling him out for the Floyd-McGregor undercard, and he responded on Instagram and said, "Who the fuck is that guy?" Did you see this?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
What did you think of it?
It's fine. I mean, it's someone else has used it before, so I come out with something new.
Talk to us a little bit about how this matchup would go if it did go down, because a lot of people are saying, oh, Stipe is the UFC champion. He's the baddest man when it comes to MMA, but boxing is a different animal. How would you see a matchup play out between you two?
I think it would go well. I think if I use my speed, I have great cardio. I think I just move on him, and my angles would just make him in trouble.
Is there sort of a sense of inspiration for you as well, seeing McGregor go out and go to a different sport and challenge the best? Is there an inspiration for you to sort of go out and do the same thing with Anthony Joshua?
Oh, definitely. No, he can do what he wants. I'm not worried. I'm not gonna have someone else motivate me to go do something. No, man. Like I said, McGregor does well. But also opens a path up to us MMA guys.
I'm curious, if this fight did come together, what kind of changes would you make in your camp? Because we did a tour with John Kavanagh here in Australia. We interviewed him, and he spoke about how they built this whole boxing area up for Conor McGregor at the back of their gym, and they're switching up quite a few things. If this fight was to come together, do you have some idea in the back of your mind how you'd go about training? Would you keep the same team? Would you switch things up? How would you go about it? Because it would be pretty interesting.
I think I would keep the same team. We have a boxing team in our gym too. We have boxers at our gym. But I would keep everything the same. I just wouldn't do MMA. I would just box.
Of course. And while we're talking about all these potential fights, potential opponents, what are the chances, do you think, that you end up fighting later this year, Stipe?
I'll fight again for sure.
But not necessarily this year.
No, I'll probably fight again this year by the end of the year.
Well, the big news that we also wanted to quickly touch on before we let you go, and we really appreciate the time, Stipe, is the family situation in the Miocic household. We know you guys have been looking to have some children. Give us an update on this. Is this still the plan? Are you looking to have maybe a child in the near future to bring into the new home, possibly move into the barn, so they could look at the big thing there of you?
Yeah, of course. Always practicing, so still working on it.
That's very nice. So it's official. So you and the wife are trying for a baby.
Oh, of course. Yep, 100%.
Wow, exciting time. So what happens when you guys have the baby? Do you think you'll take a bit of a time off and a break from MMA to spend time with the newborn child?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you? I want to enjoy it.
I feel like you'll be taking
that time.
I feel like you'd be taking the kid to the firehouse and to the on call outs as a paramedic, just like, hold on a second, let me revive you in a moment. I'm just going to give this guy the bottle. Well, look, as we wrap up, Stipe, the biggest question of them all, names for this child. Of course, Dennis and Casper have proven to be some of the better names to choose for a child as of late. Have you guys been able to settle on a name? I know you and Ryan, both of you guys have pretty cool names yourselves, so I'm expecting something interesting here. Maybe something to do with Cleveland, a previous player, a baseball player, or maybe a basketball player. What are we thinking here?
We don't know yet. We're just figure out when it happens. We'll come to that decision. Nothing crazy yet. We haven't got there yet. So the minute we find out that it's for sure, then we'll come out with something.
I feel like Anthony and Joshua is out of the running. Would I be right?
Yes.
All righty, guys. Well, look, Stipe, we appreciate time. Thank you so much for coming onto the program. Guys, he is the baddest man on the planet. So much fun having him on the program. You can follow him on Twitter at Stipe Miocic UFC. Excited to see what's next for you, big man. Thank you so much for coming onto the program. And again, so much fun having you here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys. Our next guest is coming off a dominant finish over the surging Kelvin Gastelum at UFC on Fox 25 in his hometown of Long Island, New York. He is currently ranked number 5 in the UFC's middleweight rankings and also the former UFC middleweight champion. He's, of course, Chris Weidman. Chris, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you today?
It's always a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, the pleasure is all ours, Chris. And you were supposed to be on last week, but there were some problems around a recent surgery that you had. We believe it was your thumb. So tell us, how are you recovering, and what exactly was the surgery?
Who told you about that? That's confidential.
We have spies. We watch you when you sleep, Chris. We know these things.
You guys know my house cameras?
Yeah, that's right.
I knew it. That's the only way you would know. So I had, I guess in the fight, on one of my left hooks, I'm pretty sure in the first or second, when he was coming after me, I threw a left hook, and my thumb I got dislocated, and it had torn a ligament and a little piece of bone.
Wow.
And so after the fight, I got my hands checked out. I thought I was going to be okay. I didn't think I was going to need surgery. I was hoping just something was broken, but I ended up needing to do a surgery where it's going to be all right recovery. It's like 6-week recovery. Mm-hmm. So, but they gave me a crazy ass scar. I got a pin in my hand right now. Had a bunch of stitches. So, pretty painful surgery, but it's a quick recovery. So.
Wow. Is it a big scar? The kind of scar that you're going to be showing off?
You know, I might have to. I think I might make it like some barbed wire, or I might have to do a tattoo around it.
Yeah.
Do something cool. Because I don't know, it's pretty crazy right now.
How's it feeling, by the way? I mean, you literally, I think you're a week removed from surgery. How's it feeling now?
I'm like 2 weeks. What am I? 2.5? I think I'm like almost 3 weeks actually removed from surgery. I had surgery pretty much right away.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where it was really painful, you know. And I had it's a monster scar, and I think anything on the hand just I guess sucks with all the nerve endings in there. But yeah, no, it's doing all right. It's feeling good.
Well, on the opposite side of things, we want to congratulate you because we saw the other week you celebrated your 9-year anniversary with your lovely wife. So we've got to find out, what did you guys do to celebrate the special occasion?
We went to this place on Long Island, this place called Maroni's. It's a really good restaurant. It's like a bunch of tasting menu type place, Italian style, where they just keep bringing out all different types of like taste of food, like tapas and stuff. So it was really good. You know, hung out with the wifey.
I'm a big tapas guy, so much respect. What is the Weidman secret? I know this is kind of a broad, open question, but if you can give it to us, what is the Weidman secret to keeping such a happy and successful marriage for so long? 9 years, that's a long time.
Just give up.
Give up.
You have to recognize. You got to recognize the real. And my wife, she doesn't. You know, I can't win an argument. So when there's, sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut and just take the L. You got to just get used to taking losses. And
I like it.
She runs me.
I love it. There's
and
people
I'm okay
out with
it. I'm okay with it.
There's people out with notepads right now writing down the secret. I feel like we're changing a lot of relationships right now. But I mean, in general, we imagine these last few weeks, apart from the annoying surgery, must be, a great time for you because we know you had a lot of pressure on you going into this Kelvin Gastelum fight. So tell us, how are you feeling now in general in life? Is it a bit more stress-free and enjoyable now that you're back in the win column?
I feel good. And yeah, I guess a little less stress. But I'm very motivated to continue. You know, so I'm back in the gym. I'm doing everything I can with my legs. You know, getting my legs looking good. Trying to get those calf muscles looking right. You know, and just doing everything I can. You know, cosmetically to look as good as I can, and that's it.
Oh man, I'm picturing a lot of shorts this summer, Chris. But I'm not in all seriousness. They're not only beating Gastelum, but finishing.
I got huge calves.
Huge calves. I love it. How much did that do for you mentally in terms of, I guess, believing in yourself again and helping you to sort of see yourself and visualize yourself as champion again? That win.
I felt awesome. I knew what I could do. My coaches did, and all people saw from the outside looking in was, if they're a casual MMA fan, as a guy who has 3 losses, and they were thinking I was just on my way out, and it was all motivating stuff for me. So to be able to have the opportunity to prove people wrong.
Romero, Whitaker, and Bisping, what do you think kind of makes sense as the next fight for yourself?
I don't know. We shall see. The division is in a weird spot. Mm-hmm. I got into the sport to become champion, so whatever it takes to get the belt, that's where the money's at. Like the real money that you need that you're able to use. So that's the goal. Whatever way you get the belt, whether it's rematches with Yoel Romero or Luke Rockhold, whoever in the top 5, people want to see me fight. I'm down for. Obviously, the quicker way you get the belt, that's what I want to do.
Any particular fights that you're sort of eyeing and that are on your radar? You mentioned Luke Rockhold is facing David Branch in September in Pittsburgh. If he wins, could you see it setting up the rematch that was originally supposed to happen at UFC 199?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I think Branch beats him. I mean, I think Luke, he got put to sleep by Pillow Hands Bisping, and I think his chin might be gone. So I have a feeling he gets put to sleep against Branch. But we shall see. I don't know. Don't know what the future entails. I'm not really anticipating anything. I can't control these things. I don't know I don't know what's going to happen. I just got to take care of myself. And
and with him not being too far away from what people believe is a possible retirement, is he to fight him before he finished up his career?
No, I don't care. I want the biggest challenges, and honestly, I don't think he's the biggest challenge. Definitely not. Whether he's champ or not, he's not the individual that I get excited to fight because he's champion. I get excited. I would get excited to fight him if he had the belt. Other than that, which I don't see him having the belt very long, I don't see any reason to fight him.
Wow. I'm curious because he actually admitted on his podcast that your tweet, you guys obviously had a bit of back and forth. You know, he brought up your dad. You brought up on you know, he claims that he's going to make you pay when he sees you next time for feeling like you can tweet whatever you want. He brought up the fact that you're a religious guy. Did you realize that he took those tweets so seriously?
Man, this guy does everything. He bashes everybody else. You know, he doesn't he rips up the Cuba flag right in front of Yoel Romero's face. Wow, it's Michael Bisping. I think you could bring everything to the table. I don't think he pretty much go free range on him. He can't take it. It's crazy.
And it must be interesting because obviously you do a lot of promotional work with the UFC in between fights. You're a guest at a lot of fights.
I really can't get mad at anything Bisping says, and I can't take him seriously. I mean, listen, if the guy comes in my face and he's screaming, we're probably going to end up fighting, but I don't think it's a problem. There's going to be a problem, but I'm not looking for a problem with the guy. I don't really care.
You just chilling, working on your car.
Yeah, I feel like this whole thing is probably going to hold up the division for a long time. If it works out that way, you know, the way it looks like right now and the possibilities of how long it could take before the opportunity for other guys to fight for the belt, it looks a little crazy right now. So hopefully things change a little bit. I'm hopeful they will. Because I know Whitaker's injured pretty long. I mean, GSP hasn't fought 4 years. He's been out for a while, so who knows until when he would be ready if he was to win to fight again. And then you have Bisping, who also really hasn't fought too much since he's had the belt, you know. So I don't know when even they would fight Whitaker, and then the winner of that, when you can actually fight them, barring injury or not, you know. So yeah, worry about myself and see what happens.
And Dana White and GSP have said that he'll defend the title if he beats Bisping, but a lot of us have a hard time believing that we'll see him defend the title 1 or 2 times.
I don't know. I guess. I mean, if he's saying he has to, maybe he will. So we shall see.
And out of shot, but like you mentioned, the division may take almost a year to shake out. Do you kind of sort of think about your own career win if you know the division's going to be shaking itself out for such a long time?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not interesting. I mean, so I mean, if 185
get 205, what makes it an interesting, I suppose, move for yourself? Is it the fact that at the moment the division looks like it's pretty quiet and it's a great time to sort of go up there and try your hand at light heavyweight?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a thinner division. And right now the title picture, there's no clear, I don't feel like there's clear contenders, you know. I don't know how many guys are up in the top 5 that really are shooting to fight for the title soon. So if there's a clear picture to go to 205, I mean, clear picture to the title at 205, you know, then I would consider that, you know. But again, I'm not really not putting too much thought into any of this. You know, obviously I got to focus on getting my hand better and staying healthy, and that's it, man. Let's see, maybe Bisping or maybe GSP gets injured. I don't know, and I'll be ready to go for November, and Bisping won't be able to scatter away from a guy like me. So that could be that would work out nice for me.
that would be very nice. I mean, Madison Square Garden. That's right. That would be great. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is about going up to 205 is that even in 205, John Jones is currently, it looks like, and the UFC kind of looks like they might be doing this, putting this together, but it looks like he may be facing Brock Lesnar at some point next year. So it looks like things are tied up there as well.
What's that?
It looks like things are tied up at 205 as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on the fact that even at 205, if you go in there, looks like things would be delayed for a little bit as well?
I don't know. Like I said, I can't control any of these things. So, I mean, I'm not going to push any energy in it. I'm going to see how things play out. I'm going to worry about my hand, wait for that to heal up, and we'll see where we are in a couple of weeks, you know?
Would you be open if the UFC said, hey, Chris, your next fight, you can fight at 205? Would you be open to maybe the next fight being at 205?
If there's a clear picture and a clear picture to the title, yeah.
Well, it's exciting stuff. Excited to see what happens next. Now, we know you've obviously got a great team with Ray Longo, Matt Serra, and John Vellante and the gang. So tell us, at the moment, are you guys, what's the situation in the gym? Are you guys interested in this McGregor-Mayweather fight coming up, the boxing match? It's coming up next week. Are you guys excited to watch this thing? Or are you guys of the sentiment that, this is a bit of a silly matchup?
Everyone I think thinks it's a silly matchup, but I think everybody's interested. I'm excited to watch it, to be honest with you, because you never know what's going to happen. And there's so much on the line. It's definitely a historic event, so I'm excited to watch it.
What's the plans? Are you going to be watching it at home with the family, or are you, Longo and Sarah Vellante, sort of having a bit of a party, get together, and watching the fights?
I have an appearance, I believe, on the Poconos. It's like in Pennsylvania.
Oh no!
Have you heard of Pennsylvania? I never know.
We do, yeah, we do. Yeah. So you'll be streaming it on your phone, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna stream it on my phone. I'm gonna go on Facebook and get like one of those fake streams.
What's
people are not paying for?
What's the
appearance? It really is a problem, by the way. For one of these pay-per-views recently, I was on just happened to be scrolling my newsfeed on Facebook, and literally like 7 people had like Facebook Live going with the UFC pay-per-view going with thousands of people watching it.
It was Matt
and
Serra,
I'm like,
wasn't
holy,
it?
you know how much money these dudes are just taking? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I guess it's hard to stop. What was your question? I don't know.
I'm just curious. What is the appearance? What's going on in Pennsylvania?
Oh, there's a restaurant out there that one of my friends knows the owner, and they want to have me out there and watch the event. And, probably sign autographs and all that stuff, but, kind of just bring people to the bar.
Well, what a fun opportunity for Pennsylvania. I'm sure everybody's going to get up there. Before we let you go, Chris, I mean, you spoke in the past about Conor's size. Do you believe that he's got a chance here to beat Floyd?
Yeah. I mean, I think I have him winning now. I think he's going to win. That's my last prediction. 3rd-round knockout.
Wow. I'm just curious, what made you come to that conclusion? Because, I mean, a lot of people roll bouncing around. We're trying to figure it out. Obviously, he looks super confident in all the media appearances. He's looking like he's in great shape. But what made you come to that conclusion and that final prediction?
No, just gut feeling. I'm feeling it. I think it's going to happen. And then they're going to have a second fight. Mayweather's going to win that. And then next thing you know it, they got Conor versus Floyd trilogy.
Wow, there you go.
Everybody
and then maybe
spent $300. Which means $500 million for each of them.
And then maybe Chris Weidman drops down weight and fights Mayweather next.
I might have to take out Mayweather. Name any of those boxers. You give me that money. Let's go.
You might need to do it, Chris, because it looks like all the divisions are tied up in the UFC at the moment. But look, it's exciting. And Pennsylvania, again, get out there. What's the name of your friend's restaurant so everybody in Pennsylvania can make sure to get out there and check it out?
The Mountain Creek Inn.
Well, there you go. The Mountain Creek Inn. That sounds like the place to be in Pennsylvania during the Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather fight. Make sure to get up there, get next to Chris, get his thoughts. He put out the official prediction, so if he gets it, you'll be there live to celebrate it with him. I mean, it'll be a big, big thing. And guys, make sure to follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Weidman and Instagram Chris Weidman UFC. Chris, we hope you have a speedy recovery with your thumb. We hope that scar looks cool because chicks dig scars. And we can't wait to see what happens next, man. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on to Submission Radio.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Hey, this is Jimmy Manuel. You listen to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guests are the driving force behind one of the best MMA websites out there today, Flow Combat, where they're not on a crazy road trip. They're getting exclusives with a team that includes Elias Cepeda, Damon Martin. It's a pleasure to welcome Dwayne Finley and Hunter Homistech back to Submission Radio. Boys, it's great to have you back on the program.
It's a pleasure, man. Me and Glow, we're usually rocking in parts unknown, but if if you guys want to step in and swing, then the big meaty over here, he'll show you how to get down.
Excellent. It's great to have you guys. Let's kick this off by talking about this McGregor-Mayweather media days that happened this past week. I mean, I suppose the wind down after a long and arduous sort of media schedule for the guys leading into this boxing match. Dwayne, I want to get your thoughts first. What did you think of Conor McGregor's media day, and where are you at in terms of your thoughts with his boxing? The boxing that he's displayed and the movement that he's displayed and the stuff that we've seen, has it changed your thoughts or opinions on how this boxing match will go down?
Nah, I just wanted to get over with, to be honest with you. I wanted to hurry up. No, I mean, look, if Conor's shown us anything in the 5 years he's been in MMA, is that he's only gonna let us see what he wants us to see. You know what I mean? So just like it's all gamesmanship right now. Conor doing the noodle arms, the Squidward, as I've heard it been called. No, I mean it's all things that we all just kind of pick. It's like so we can all play analyst and psychologist and all this stuff, but they're only showing us what they want us to see. And no, I mean I don't think we're gonna have any idea what Conor actually brings to the table until the referee gets out of the way.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Dwayne. I think you hit the nail on the head as far as secrecy and game planning. No fighter is going to go into an open workout and approach it with the intention of mirroring what they do during their regular workouts or showcasing what they're intending on bringing to a fight. There's no game planning or reveal, and I honestly think you can draw very little from majority of open workouts because fighters, they just don't take them very seriously. They don't go in there with the intention of giving maximum effort. They just go in there and it's really an opportunity for the media to snap some photos, take some videos, maybe ask some questions, and that's about it. You see fighters all the time throwing techniques and showing off moves that they have zero intention of using in an actual fight. And I think that a lot of people mocking Conor McGregor and saying he doesn't look as good or as fast as Floyd Mayweather, I don't think he was trying to, and it would work to his favor to go in there and show less than what he's bringing. I know a lot of people are mocking him and criticizing him, and I think that a lot of that is just the boxing crowd who may not be familiar with Conor McGregor's open workouts, because what he showed there is very typical of what he showed in his last few fights. So I don't really see the criticism. I know there's the noodle arms that he went and showed off. I get it. It looks funny. It looks silly. To put it in perspective, I remember in 2010, because basically what he's doing, it's an active stretch, right? He's trying to stretch his shoulders. And this is just some kind of movement that he's been working on with Ido Portal. It's obviously not a technique he's going to utilize in his fight. So I don't know why people are taking it so seriously. To put it in perspective, in 2010, when I did my personal training course, my prior knowledge of exercising was more to do with hypertrophy and bodybuilding, and most of my knowledge came from things like Flex Magazine. And when I was taught all these kind of active stretches and how to stretch your muscles with things like foam rollers and tennis balls and all these different techniques that to me at the time seemed really out of this world, and I kind of questioned, like, wow, this looks kind of silly. Does it really work? And years later, you see all of those techniques and active stretches employed by fighters at open workouts all the time. Stretching is not as simple as just taking your arm, putting it across your chest, giving it a bit of a stretch, and then stretching your quads, and then off you go and do a workout. So I think really it worked to Conor McGregor's favor to get this kind of he's getting even more exposure. So I really didn't take anything from these open workouts. What I took
recent, John Jones didn't do anything at his open workout with Daniel Cormier, and it came out after the damn thing, and he came out looking better than ever, who was probably already the best mixed martial artist in the world. Dog pulled up in the background, and this ad started playing. Colon cancer screening can be for you. So it's like, this is colon. I'm getting like subliminal colon cancer messages here in the background.
Perfect timing.
I thought it was just mere mention that John Jones got Hunter all flustered, or maybe the thought of playing touch butt in the park.
It happens, man. But to get back on topic, the new what it speaks to is the fact that no matter what Conor McGregor does, it's going to go in at this point where every damn thing he does is under a microscope and everybody wants to copy him. And you can say, oh, I'm making fun of him when I do it. But no, you're not. You don't make fun of somebody and film it and then hashtag it and put it on Twitter and hope that it makes you famous. That's what everybody's doing. But like Dwayne said, like you guys said, I'm not putting too much stock in it
now. A bunch of them just to include that weird warm-up as, oh, by the way, guys, the Conor McGregor CrossFit class is on at 7:30 today. We'll be doing the noodle arms and then going through some movement.
This is where things are right now. Like
JFK assassination, right?
Yeah, yeah. He did pull him down on the head a little bit, but then he zapped him with an uppercut. So what? It's brilliant. And I know we're gonna, I know we'll mention this later, but they perfectly suit who don't watch boxing, who are MMA fans and writers are like, oh, they were like breaking down the technique. It was almost what's that word? Glow, sickening.
It is that other websites are still publishing headline after headline after headline about this or about the topic in some more roundabout way. The fact that all of that is happening speaks to a very powerful video, but for me, I'm not taking too much away from that.
I mean, if you're asking, was it a knockdown, pushdown? I'm still not so much undecided. I just don't think there's really enough data to figure out exactly what happened. To me, the most important thing is the left hand. Did it connect? How did it connect? You couldn't really even see how it connected. It was sort of a bad angle in multiple different angles, so you don't really know whether it hit him flush, whether it bounced off, whether it grazed him. And that's what's the most important part. And then afterwards, you see Conor McGregor's arm and hand and wrist on the back of Paulie Malignaggi's neck. So really, the only people who know are probably Conor McGregor and Paulie Malignaggi because they're the ones who felt it. And I'm curious what happens when this sparring footage is released. But I'm like you guys. At the end of the day, we're seeing a tiny fragment of a 36-minute sparring session, and we're seeing 10 seconds of it. I mean, to sort of paint a picture, you mentioned Sherdog before. I saw a funny thread on Sherdog where people were kind of mocking the idea that 10 seconds out of a 36-minute sparring session will tell you what you need to know. People putting up pictures of Dennis Siver landing on Conor McGregor and making jokes that, hey, look, Dennis Siver kicked Conor McGregor's ass. Or Dustin Poirier landing on Conor McGregor. There'll be like a photo of a punch that Dustin landed and say, look, Dustin landed a punch. And it's like, if you take any fragment of even a fight, you could potentially, be swayed. Like if you took, say, 10 seconds of Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard, either the second one or the third one from the early rounds, you would think, Jesus Christ, Frankie got his ass kicked. And there's quite a bit of insight about Conor McGregor and his boxing, but at the end of the day, how many times did we hear translate in her fights? So I think at the end of the day, sparring is so different compared to the actual live fight. Now, we've heard Conor McGregor talk about how he had cardio for days, and then we saw his cardio failed. He clearly wasn't in great shape, and even if he was in the best fighting shape, he's still not Mayweather. So you can do eye tests and sort of say that Conor McGregor was in shape, and that's what we can take away from it. And he was putting the pressure on Paul. But other than that, there's really not much to take away. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. To me, and by the way, to me, it did kind of look like a little bit of a trip, but it doesn't matter. It's 10 seconds, like you guys said. Like, Paulie is not Mayweather at all. And even, when he was in his prime, he had a lot of great wins. But you could arguably say, even in his prime, he's still not one of the greatest of all time, although he achieved some great accomplishments and won 2 titles. Dwayne, I was interested to hear how you said you were sort of getting kind of sick and tired of this whole thing. Me and Casper were talking about this build-up before we did the show, and I was telling him how I had this expectation for the build-up in terms of, how these media days would play out, the trash talk. And to me, when I was watching the media day, the interviews, just the coverage, I felt a little bit bored. I felt like, all right, this is too much of this. I just want the fight to happen already. It was just a lot of the same questions about a lot of the same stuff they've already heard Conor and his team speak about already for weeks and weeks on end. How do you rate this build-up going into the fight now that we're a week out? Did it meet your expectations, or do you think it's a little bit too much and too short of a time and sort of in a small way took away a little bit of that anticipation, made things just a little bit boring for a lot of people that were watching? What do you think, Dwayne?
Well, 2 things right quick. One, I'd like to say that, speaking of other footage, there was a footage of a 10-second video clip edited of Glow beating Cubs that was not leaked. But, because we don't want Cub to lose his ranking.
Of course.
But, and so Cubs going to be like, release the full 12 rounds.
Yeah, of course.
But, and then, like, on the Paulie McGregor thing, I was just like, who cares? Let's get to this fight. And then now, to answer your question about the media day, yeah, man, it doesn't feel like it really should. But I think it's because the last 3 stops of the World Tour burned us out so bad. And I was just glad that I watched one. I watched like a few seconds of Floyd's stuff. and I watched Conor's movement. I didn't watch any of the interviews or anything around it because now I'm at the point where I don't want to hear him talk anymore. I'm already sold. You know, I'm all in. You don't gotta entice me anymore. Like I guess they're going over. Is it like this week they're doing something in Ireland? Is that right? Is that true? Like there's more like workouts to do, right?
You know what? I'm not 100%. I've been asking certain people for the schedule. I believe there'll be some kind of, boxing style presser next week. I don't know. Hunter, have you heard anything about this potential? I find it hard to imagine they're going to go all the way to Ireland, though. I mean, they're, a week away from the fight. That would just kill them travel-wise. Hunter, have you heard anything?
You would think. I haven't heard anything either, man. I'm kind of with Dwayne on this, and you got. I've been tuned out to a certain degree, man. The coolest thing that I saw from that media day was Esther Lynn. I don't know if you guys saw the great photographer Esther Lynn. Yeah, going ninja on the rafter for the overhead shots. That to me was the highlight of the whole day, man. That was the coolest thing. That was the coolest thing that happened. So, I mean, I don't mean to be like Debbie Downer on the fight. Like Dwayne said, I'm sold on it, man. I'm excited for the fight itself. But all the build up, man, we're already sold. Like you guys can kind of cool on this stuff,
Yeah, I feel like at the same time, if they I think us, because we are in the MMA bubble, because we do it as our jobs, and it's our jobs to read all this stuff. It does get a little bit arduous, but I think how many interviews from professional boxers can you really handle, and hearing their opinions on the fight? I mean, I'm full to the brim of other people's opinions, and I've heard them all. So it's like I find myself skipping articles unless it's stuff on, say, the gloves and what's really going to happen, or stuff that's actually going to affect the fight, certain rules, blah blah, who the referees are, stuff like that. I tend to ignore it. But look, for the casual fans, I think all in all, it's. We may look at the build-up and say, Jesus, it's been pretty full-on, but it's been very successful. I see all these random websites here in Australia that have nothing to do with not only MMA, but sports. They're just websites on what's going on in Melbourne, and they're advertising and promoting the locations in Melbourne where you can watch the Conor McGregor fight. I've never seen that for even the biggest UFC pay-per-views. I mean, you mentioned, we spoke about that knockout footage. You can talk about the ethics. Obviously, Dana White has zero... The rule about what happens in sparring stays in sparring doesn't apply if you're a promoter. So I think releasing that footage was great, because now a lot of casual fans think that, wow, Conor McGregor has a lot more chances than previously. You see the build-up from casual fans, all these things going viral. Conor McGregor wearing CJ Watson's jersey and flaunting the jersey of the man who Mayweather's ex-girlfriend was texting, which ultimately led to Floyd committing domestic violence and going to jail for it. That was some nice mental warfare. I think if you, once again, kind of like the world tours, if you look at the whole thing in terms of highlights, there's a lot of gold. But I think for us in the MMA media, it's a little bit much to digest. But I will say, overall, I think the build-up to Aldo McGregor, to me, was a lot more fun and a lot more tense. And I think that one thing that's kind of been missing from this is the tension, that feeling that, these guys hate each other and anything can happen at any moment. I think both guys, they're so happy and so content with the fact that they're going to make so much money that respect, that happiness is constantly bubbling over, and there just isn't really that animosity. This isn't Conor McGregor fighting for something that he believes he's deserved for a long time. He's already made it. He's already got the money. I'm not saying he's not going to go in there and fight to win, but I think both guys are sort of content in some way. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, no, I agree with that point. And I do speak to a lot of casual fans, and they didn't catch all the press conferences. They might have seen a little clip here and there. So casually, I think it's been good, but I agree with the Aldo and McGregor. That was a better build-up. And to me, I'm a little bit disappointed with the build-up. I expected a lot more. And, we've spoken about this before, but to me, when they're both around each other, you can see they're both in cahoots. There's no real animosity. A lot of the time, they could stand in front of each other and nothing would happen. They wouldn't touch each other, just in case they jeopardize the fight. And it's not the same as when he was in there with Nate Diaz and you had to jump in between there because you didn't know what was going to happen and who was going to throw bottles at who and who was going to duck what. So it's a little bit different. I'm a little bit disappointed, but I'm still excited about the fight.
Did you get a laugh out of these Zab Judah rumors by any chance, Dennis? That Zab Judah apparently knocked out Floyd Mayweather in training. It's been circling.
The thing that I loved about this, and Dwayne and Hunter, you guys would read about this all the time and laugh at this all the time, is that not only it was the story false, but Casper told me about this initially because we're having a laugh about it. Apparently, the guy who wrote it and his publication was also fabricated as well.
The Las Vegas Post doesn't exist. The Twitter account, the man that doesn't exist. It was like a Twitter account with like 14 tweets all about the fight and where to believe.
Oh my goodness.
And it was funny because it was like, oh, inside information from TMT. It's like, well, if it's from TMT, then we're definitely going to believe it. I don't know if you guys, Hunter, did you see by any chance that video that Mayweather released where he looked like, it was on FightHype.com. And it was basically like the video was titled something like Mayweather at
about all this aspect of it is actually, I think my mom tagged Dwayne and I both tonight in a post on Facebook about it. And it was about Floyd getting knocked out in training. And she's like, is this real? And I literally just replied, I said, that's fake news, Mom. Like, even the fake news is permeating MMA media now. Like, but that speaks to how big she's even seeing this, just speaks to the reach of this. And like you said about kind of the random Australian websites that are picking this up and running with it now. This fight is massive. It is massive, and that's I think we have it. I think we actually can release that footage. Cub says, man, you actually got a decent one too.
That's not fake or made up. That's not edited. That was like the one positive before we were pissing blood. But but you know what? I want to say on the fake news comment, kudos to that guy for going layers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was going to be a fight, and we didn't know who was going to win that one. You know what I mean? We know who's winning this one. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing about our sport, and it's always it's up for grabs, and anything can happen. But like the all access and Floyd Mayweather being such a cheerleader for Conor, he's promoting the hell out of Conor McGregor because he needs you to buy those tickets. But at the same time, that's why I said that's a very telling thing here that the reason the Paulie thing took on like a little more heat and people seem to be more interested in that because that's a closer fight. You know what I mean? Like that's a fight that we might not actually know who wins or loses. Thing is because like I think that's a fight that would be close and interesting. And I think once still trying to believe, and for those of us like we four who live in this bubble all the time. We see when the animosity is real, when it's not, and it hasn't been there since this thing was announced.
Do you want to see it? I'm just curious, Dwayne, if, regardless of how Mayweather-McGregor goes, are you interested in this Paulie Malignaggi versus Conor McGregor thing? Because I feel like that thing came at a perfect time where there was no press conferences, there was no nothing, there was a lull, and this Paulie thing comes in, and all of a sudden everyone's...
You know what? Conor has done so much for combat sports. I will literally support anything that man does, and I wish him the best. Even though if I, win, lose or draw, I like to watch. I like to watch anything he's involved in. So yeah, but to answer your question on a boxing front, I'm way more interested in seeing Conor versus Paulie because I think that's a more in-level fight.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that ends up happening. And I mean, Dana White, by the way. Just pretty good timing, like you mentioned, Casper, leaking that footage. The guy knows what he's doing when he releases his stuff, so it really adds to the fight. And to you, Hunter, I love how your mum tagged Dwayne and yourself in that post. My mum also reads stuff online about MMA, and then she'll debate me about it because she'll be like, well, I read this, and I'll be like, nah, but they said that. And she'll be like, yeah, but this said this. And then I'll be like, yeah, but he was on you say it then. And I'll be like, well, I don't know. And there's a huge argument over that for hours, and that happens a few times a week. But speaking of Dana White, Dwayne, Dana White's Contender Series has been getting a bit of flack for Snoop Dogg's involvement as a commentator on the show. Him and Uriah Faber have been doing some commentating there. People aren't too happy getting from fans, and this sort of new direction, I suppose, the UFC are taking when it comes to the voice that carries a fight for fans when they watch it on TV.
Well, first, I gotta. I like the idea that it's a little something fresh, and something and something new. But at the same time, it's also it's almost a passionate thing, and there's so much sacrifice into it that, when you see, during the Contender Series, I think it was the DC stuff, but. I will go and say this right now, and you guys know me personally. I don't hate on anybody, but I don't even care about what Snoop is. Grisham's the worst. Like, Grisham is the worst on that turn, though, and for other reasons, because of the fact that they're showcasing a much broader scope of prospect or fighter. It's not like the Ultimate Fighter with the novelty of it. Yeah, I like it, and I'd like to see kind of where it goes.
Hunter, what do you think of Todd Snoop and this direction that, UFC commentating's going in?
And he made a strong argument. Personally, I'm totally fine with it, man. I feel like it's two separate. I feel like these are two different arguments. You can't really lump them together, right? Like Snoop has an entirely different purpose than Todd Grisham. So I feel like it's two separate arguments when you break it down that way. Flow Combat deals in the prospect business a lot. We live stream regional MMA events with
in store for everybody, and yeah.
Wait,
man,
so is this the last one, Dwayne? The road trip to Endell road trips? Are you saying this is it? Because don't break people's hearts.
No, I'm saying this now, and then 6 months I'll be on your show, being like, "We're going again."
He's like the Dana White of road trips. Oh, the ship turned around.
Like, you just believe the opposite of what I say, but no, I mean, this is gonna be a big one for at least a year. But we're gonna go from pretty much from Maine to Miami, and just hitting all the gyms you can think of along that way. And then we also, we joked about earlier about the Cub Swanson video. We have some super special treats because we decided to kind of turn up the volume a little bit on this one. Every stop, we're gonna do a challenge. Like, we're gonna challenge a fighter. Not like, we're not getting our ass kicked again. Too bad. But fans that listen to your show and they read our articles and they follow our sites. They do it because they genuinely love the sport, and they tune in for the fights, but they want to. But then for us to go there and to make and to bring the read, follow along on social media, and Glow and I have gotten tons of comments. How many Motel 6 beds can you share before it gets inappropriate?
The very first one is going to be very awkward. This is scientifically researched and peer-reviewed, guys.
Amazon.com, you guys can definitely go out and grab this book. But I'm curious because it says renowned and at the top mixed martial arts gyms in the country, Finley found the answers he was looking for, along with far more than he ever expected to learn about fighting, life, and himself. I'm hooked already. The interesting thing is that you're already a writer, you're already a journalist, you go on these huge road trips, and they're very well documented. So what made you decide and want to write a book? What was the sort of inspiration behind it?
Well, when the offer came to me about doing it, it's exact during that year, and that's the story. Like, what about the story? Let people see it. So then it's not just an MMA book. It's a book about a dream. It's a book about trying to make. Because, see, guys, like, I think people tune into your show and they're like, oh, man, it seems so easy. You just talk to fighters and you just, bullshit back and forth to each other. But it's not that easy. No. We all know this. We all know how much sacrifice and long nights and everything that goes into it. So the reality is I had a tremendously crazy, tragic, dark, but magical year. I mean, and the funny thing is that Hunter was the first person to read it when I got it completed. So, I don't do too well talking about myself, but, Hunter could give you an idea of kind of what I can't tell you,
Well, I'm not gonna give all the goodies away of the book, but like Dwayne said, it's so much more than just an MMA book. That's kind of how I've pitched it to everybody I've talked to. Even if you're not interested in MMA, you're going to be interested in this book because I think everybody does have a dream. Everybody aspires to be something. And this book is really about Dwayne saying, I'm going to go out and get what I think should be mine. I'm going to go out and try to find what I think should be mine. And along the way, it makes a lot of startling realizations. It honestly spirals into something so much bigger than MMA. And I'm not going to give that part of the book away at all. But Dwayne gets very personal, opens up in a very real way, and as writers, that's what everybody talks about. It's like those are like the magic keywords as writers: be true, be honest. Everybody wants to do that. That's Ernest Hemingway's like tenets right there. And Dwayne gets so honest that it becomes just an amazing read for the reader, amazing experience for the reader, because part of us we all want to be like that, but then to see somebody really put themselves out there like that, it's either inspiring or terrifying if you want to keep running away from your demons and not confronting them, versus this guy who went out there and put them all on a page. So it tips either way for you, and I think that's what's going to be interesting about the reader's experience, is that their takeaway is going to be wholly unique because they're going to project themselves into the book. And it becomes that kind of intimate experience on that level where you're going to find yourself in this book at some point, I guarantee.
Well, Dwayne, it's called In the Cold Distance. People can order it. Paperback is October 31st, 2017. That's through Amazon. I'm going to grab that.
Yeah, the release is universal. So the release goes 10/31 Halloween of this year. The pre-orders have started. They're rolling in strong. So you can jump on a pre-order now if you'd like. Yeah, and there's like I said, the Kindle version, Kobo. There's some other options on there. But yeah, this is one thing that, like Lo said, is and I don't really, it's tough to get into because the subject matter. I had a choice to make. The thing is, I've spent nearly a decade writing about MMA, and I've done it honestly. And I've always feel like I've been an open book to everybody that follows me in conversation and whatnot. And when it came to it, I looked at myself through this process plenty of times and wondered if I was a fool. Am I a fool for chasing this? Am I a fool for putting my family through this? Am I a fool for what it does to me mentally and physically? And it's not just something, and that's why I get so angry or bent sometimes. And I look around MMA media and I'm like, man, these guys have been mailing it in for so long. I don't know what that's like. Hunter doesn't know what that's like. You guys don't know what that's like. If my name's on it, then damn it, you're going to get the best of what I have to give. And that's just because I demand so much of myself. And that's what we should all do. But then I quickly realized after this journey and after this book was completed that it's just not like that. That's what does set me apart from others. So, Hunter summed it up as best even better than I could in my own words. So, it's an experience book. It's that's why I always tell everybody, if you're going to sign up for it, then buy the ticket, take the ride, as the great Hunter S. Thompson said. But at the end of it, you're going to figure out, a little more reason to be happy and smile. And but through that, you're going to have to go through that darkness first. And I can't overstate it enough.
Well, I'm really excited for this book, guys. Make sure to jump on, order it, support Dwayne. This is great, man. And I mean, just really excited to learn more about your journey. We're excited to read the book down here. And the great thing is, digitally, paperback, you guys can grab it here in Australia. So if you're an MMA fan, if you haven't heard of Dwayne, make sure to check out this book because his story is amazing. And I'm guessing there's a lot of fun things coming out in this book in the road trip. And also, the cover art looks really, really cool. Again, it's called In the Cold Distance. Looks amazing. And jump on, do it. It's really, really a great book, and we can't wait for it to go out. And, of course, make sure to follow Hunter and Dwayne at Flow Combat, flowcombat.com. They're killing it. As always, make sure to check out their website every day. Fresh new interviews. One of the best teams in the game. And so much fun to have you guys on the program. Thank you so much for coming on. And just quickly, before we wrap up, we just want to thank Stipe Miocic, Chris Weidman, Kenny Florian for coming on the program as well and sharing their stories and thoughts on this crazy world of MMA. I'm Dennis Schrader, Kasper Rosalowski, and we can't wait to welcome you guys back to Submission Radio next week. Just a quick reminder that next week we will be doing a preview show for the Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight. I have a bunch of different journalists and people pertaining to this fight, so make sure to check that out. And also a post show coming up after that fight happens. We'll be talking about that next week during the show. So with that, be safe, and we'll catch you guys next time.